everybody. Happy Wednesday. Happy Shields Live, I should say, right? So today we're going to have a little fun and we're going to work with the border function on the Solaris. I've actually got a Solaris here. So this is the new Solaris. You get to see the new Solaris Vision today. And second here, I'm just trying to get my phone up here so I can see if I need to see any comments. Sometimes I need my phone for the comments. But I'm gonna do this on the Solaris Vision. So what we're doing today is the border function. So the border function on the Luminaire 1, and I'll kind of show you when I get to the screen here, but there was the original Luminaire had a border function for the first time. But it was one that you had to do like in one, you were limited to the size. It had to be like, it had to be real small, like, I don't know, like 30 by 30 or something. It was very small. So it was basically like being split into pieces and sort of like one hooping type of thing. So that was the original one. And then in the first upgrade to the Luminaires and the Solarises, it had, let me get my comments up here so I can see. Hi, everybody. Hi, Clara. Hi, Colleen. So in the first upgrade, they added the feature that we're going to be using today that allowed you to do a very large quilt, like a king size quilt, and split it up into pieces. And so you go all the way around the whole thing. And that was a huge deal. And it is so fun to use. It's really very easy. The machine like walks you through it step by step by step. So it's really cool, and you'll be able to see it on the screen. I've got the camera, as you can see, I've got the camera on a tripod, so it's a little easier to see the screen today. And then in the second upgrade for the Luminaire Solarises, those added some 2-color borders, so there's more borders and more single colored ones as well. And then in this new machine, they've added. They also added some hexagon shaped borders. So you could do hexagons for the border function as well, instead of just rectangles. And then then in this new machine, they added an edge to edge feature. So it runs kind of the same way. And I'm going to do the edge to edge one too. I just haven't gotten there yet. So I just got my upgrade. So now I can actually use it because I need to have some time to play with it. And then we'll do one of those also. So that one's really cool. But I know it works. I could see from what I played with so far, it works basically the same way as this one does today. So I have a Solaris 2 with upgrade on order, got lessons with it. Oh, cool. So anyway, this is pretty cool, Clara, because this machine has a lot of, there's a lot of really cool extra features in this one over the Dream Machine. Dream Machine's wonderful, but the Solaris and the Luminaire have some extra things. So it's pretty neat. This is one of the really neat things that I really, really like. So, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to try to do this whole border. I just made a real small little quilt, and I'm going to try to do the whole thing so you can see me go all the way around it, okay, and get to the end. And I'm not a very good person to read directions and stuff, so I've learned to use this by just doing it. So I'm sure in the manual it gives you some stuff. More, but I just learned by poking the buttons and making them go. So I think you'll be fine. I think we'll be fine. And this was a really fun little project. So okay, so let me go ahead and quickly before I put the camera down, I'll show you what I made. So this is my little sample, and it's just like a little 14.5 by 14.5. It could be a cute little. I just put a backing on it. I had red polka dots, but this is the little border that I did. And it's a little small border, 2-inch border. And then it was a 14.5-inch little piece. So this little thing here, this little cute little quilting was actually in the machine. And I think this was in the upgrade. I thought this was really cute with the heart in it. And I think it might have been in the upgrade actually, because I don't remember seeing it before. So anyway, so I did this up, and we're going to do the border today. So we're going to do these cute little flowers. And I did red thread so you could really see it. I was hoping you'd be able to really see it. It's a little hard with these cameras, with the projector, with the camera, because sometimes it doesn't show up real well. So I hope it shows up. I could turn some lights down a little bit if you need to see it a little bit better. And then I've got a sample of my what not to do, because I hadn't used it for a while. So of course, I messed up the first sample. Okay. Got my little notes over here. Got my mess up. So we'll look at that. Okay. So let me switch the cameras and I'll turn off the banner. All right. Whoops. Sorry. I'm having trouble with my mouse today. There we go. And let's switch the cameras and then we will do a border. This is really fun. You'll really enjoy it. All right. Oops. Sorry. I'm having trouble with my mouse. Get my microphone turned over. All right, so hopefully you can hear me. Now I'm going to back this up a little bit. I put this on a tripod so that it was a little more stable to work on the screen, because you're going to want to see the screen. Okay, so what we're going to do first, I got to get my little notes here so I remember what I chose and what I did here. So, okay, so the first thing I want to tell you is that there is a setting in the settings button up here, okay, that you want to make sure that your projector background matches whatever fabric you're using. So in my case, I'm using this light pink. So I want my projector background to be very light colored. So I'm going to click my little settings button, and I think it's towards the end here. It's on page 6. This is the Luminaire, or I'm sorry, this is the Solaris Vision. The new 3, okay, the new Solaris 3, the Solaris Vision. So on page 6 in here, it has this background color, and I'm going to choose white because otherwise you can't see your projector. So this is a setting you have to do in the settings that you can't do while you're in the process of doing the actual border. Okay, so make sure you kind of get this set up so you know. If you're doing a real dark colored thing, choose the darker color, because then the lighter colored projections will show up on it. So just depends on what color you're using for your fabric. So I'm going to put this on white. And then the other thing I like to look at, I like my pointer shape to be the T, because that helps me line things up instead of just the polka dot. And I chose green. Sometimes I do red. Red works too, but sometimes it depends on the color I'm using for the projection. The red doesn't always show up, but green usually does. So I'm going to leave it on the green. Okay, so that's one of the things in the settings I set up. Okay, so that's the easy part. So we got that all set up. All right. So now to do this, this is in this, like I said, this is the 3. So this might look just slightly different than your machine if you have a 2, but it'll be done the same way. Or if you've got the upgrades in it, because it works the same way. So I'm going to choose this one. This is the quilting tab that has the borders, and then now it has the edge to edge. So this button might look different than yours. So I'm going to click on that. And the first tab is the single colored borders. The second tab is the 2 color borders. The third tab is the hexagons. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, hexagons. And then the fourth one now are those new edge to edge patterns. So here's the edge to edge patterns. I think there are 10 in here. Okay. So they have these edge to edge patterns now. So we're going to go back to tab number 1, which is the borders. And I chose the little flowers for mine. You can do any of them. The flowers seemed good for this one because there was flowers in the inside design. So I'm just going to pick number 9. That's the little flowers. All right, so there's the little picture of the little border up here. Okay. Then I'm going to click set at the bottom. And now this is where, if you don't have the first upgrade, if you have an older Luminaire and you don't have the first one, you're only going to have one choice, and that's this one. And then you're limited. If I touch this, you're limited to about 30 inches by about 20. So it's 20 by 30. It's very small area. Okay, so that's not big enough for most of my quilts. So when I first got this, I was disappointed because I couldn't do anything. It tells you here has to be at least almost 5 to about 30. Okay, and this one can be about 5 to about 20. So that was disappointing to me because then to me it didn't work well enough for anything except real small items. Okay, so we're going to return and let's go back to the beginning again. Hit set. And then when they had the first upgrade, they put this option in. And this is going to allow me to have a much larger quilt. So if I click on this and look now it's about 5 inches by 118. So basically a king size quilt. Okay. So that is really nice. It gives you a lot of options for just a second. I'm trying to get my comments back up here so I can see. But it gives me a lot more options. And Tim says hi. He's in Davenport today, so that's why he's not here. So you just have me today. So Tim says hi to everybody. He got back from Des Moines and the quilt show. So, all right. Then this is going to allow me to do my much larger quilt. Okay. So the little one that I'm doing today, I could have done it in the other part of the program because it's underneath 20 inches. So I could have done it. But this one here, and then you don't have to hoop as many times. But we're gonna do the actual border function. I use this most of the time because you're gonna do a bigger quilt. Okay. So I am going to so the first thing we have to do is it's going to ask for the width and the length of your quilt. So number 1 is the width, number 2 is the length. So you want to measure your quilt from raw edge to raw edge. Okay. So my quilt is 14.5 inches square. So you want to go raw edge to raw edge. So I'm going to type in then for my width, 14 down here, 0.5. And then I'm going to hit set. So it goes up here. Okay. And then I'm going to do my width or my height the same because mine's square. So I'm going to type in 14.5. I'm going to hit set. Okay. And then my border is going to be the size of my finished border. Because remember, we have to put a binding on. So my borders, I cut at 2.5. So they're going to finish at 2. So I'm going to type in here 2. Now, the one thing you'll notice is you can't do the little narrow borders in here. It has to be at least 1.18 inches for the border, and it can only go up to about 3.5 to 4. So you can only do smaller borders. So when I do a quilt that has bigger borders, I always try to keep my borders at around 4 inches because then I can do my borders in here. Okay. Some of the Kimberbell quilts actually have 5-inch borders instead of 4-inch borders. So I cut them down so that they're 4 inches so I can do them in this feature. Okay. So I'm going to type in 2 here. So 2.0 and I'm going to set it. Okay. So now the machine knows how big my quilt is and how big my border is my finished border is supposed to be. Okay. Now down here, I'm going to tell it what hoop I'm going to use. So what I have found with this is that often it's going to split it, and even if you use a great big hoop, the size smaller that is a little more manageable and easier to hoop with is still going to be about the same number of hoopings. The other hoop that I really like here, and I'm just going to turn the camera for a second. I love this when I'm doing little narrow borders, I love this old border hoop that Brother and Baby Lock have. You can still get this. It's a little expensive, but what's nice for littler narrow borders, it's not magnetic. It just has this little top that comes up and then you just clamp down. It's super easy to hoop with. And I really still like this to use for narrow borders. It's only 4 inches wide, so I can't do the wider ones with it. So I usually do like 2, maybe 2.5-inch borders and less with it, because if you have to turn your design at all, then the hoop's going to be too small. But so I am going to use this today because I'm using these little narrow ones. You can very easily use any of the magnetic hoops, the Brother Baby Lock magnetic hoops, the dime magnetic hoops. That's normally what I use if I'm doing a larger border. But what I've found is I like to try to stay in a little bit more manageable, easy to hoop. I don't like to use the great big huge ones because they're a little awkward to work with. And so I've learned that I often don't have to hoop it many more times and I can go down to a smaller hoop. Okay, so today we're going to use this old border hoop. This one is 4 by 12. So I'm going to choose, like I can choose here and I'll show you. Like if I choose the great big humongous 10.5 by 16 hoop and I hit next, down here it's going to tell me I have to hoop it 8 times. I still have to hoop it 8 times, even that great big huge hoop. And that's hard. Hoop is really hard. I think it's hard to work with. So if I hit return, I'm going to choose a different hoop. Let's say 9.5 by 14 is a good one, right? So let's try that one. And I hit next. And that one is also 8. Well, see, I don't have to use that great big huge hoop. I could go down to the 9.5 by 14 and still have the same number of hoopings. Okay. This one's not that big, so I'm going to hit return again, and I'm going to go back to the beginning, and let's go find that 7 by, like here's an 8 by 12. That's the one I love to use a lot. I use that one a lot. Hit next. That one's 12 hooping. So see, I have to hoop it a few more times in that one. But it doesn't take long to do this. So it's not that big of a deal. And mine, in this case, here's the magnetic border frame. Okay, and you notice that the 10 by 10 was on there, but this is my old 4 by 12 that I've got right here. And then the new magnetic frame is right here. It's this 10 by 10. That's the new square one. Now that one, let's see what that one is. That one you have to hoop 12 times also. Okay. So let's go ahead and get my old 4 by 12. Here it is right here. All right. And I'm going to click next. And I also have to hoop this 12 times. All right. And I know that sounds like a lot, but it's really not that big of a deal. Okay. So it goes very quickly. All right. And the thing I love about this, and the reason I learned to use this by just doing it, is the machine actually tells you what to do step by step by step right on the screen. I didn't get the instructions out at all. I just plugged in the numbers and just started going. And I got the first one done the first time with no problems. Okay. I've learned a few things since then, and I'll show you some of the tricks. Okay. So we got 12 hoopings, and it's 14.5 by 14.5. It also gives you the option, oops, second here, sorry. It also gives you the option down here at the bottom to have a single quilting stitch or like a triple stitch. Now, I normally like my quilting to be less standoutish. I don't want it to stand out as much. So I'm going to choose the single stitch, the lighter stitch, and then there's a heavier one. So I'm going to use the single one. Okay. And then it allows you here to choose the color of your projection. So in this case, my fabric's quite light colored. So we're going to pick a darker color to use. So let's just choose, I'm going to click this, and let's choose like a darker blue or a purple or something. Just something that's going to show up good on the fabric. Okay. So I chose blue, and I'm going to click OK. So what I do with this, like if I'm using black, I choose like yellow, shows up really well on the black. And then I choose, remember when we set it up here in the settings, I choose the black, and then I use like yellow, and it shows up real well on the dark fabric because I've done quite a few dark ones. So you'll kind of get the hang of it once you start playing with this a little bit. Okay, so we're going to use the blue. Then I'm going to hit, now you notice the only option it gives me is memory. So you have to save all of this into the machine before you can sew it. So we're just going to hit memory. And the data was saved in the machine's memory. Embroider the data. Okay. So here is the memory of the machine. To find that, I'll show you where it's at. It's under the pocket, and it's under the machine tab. Okay, so here's our little design right here. I'm going to click on that. And what this gives you, it gives you the entire automated border, but then it gives you all the little individual pieces. Okay. Now we want to do the whole automated border. So I'm going to choose the whole thing and I'm going to click set. And it's going to come up. And again, this is the most awesome thing. It tells you exactly what to do. So it says begin sewing from the upper right corner of the fabric. Attach the embroidery frame in the initial sewing position. Okay. So in other words, we just need to put this in the hoop. Let me get my notes out of the way here. And here's my little quilt. Now, when you're putting your quilt sandwich together, you pull this back a little bit so you can see. Okay. You notice that I have my little 14.5 by 14.5 quilt in the center. And then I have my batting. Normally I have my batting all the way out to the edge of my fabric, but I had batting already cut and I didn't want to have to recut it. So I didn't, mine's a little shorter, but you want to have about maybe 3 inches at least all the way around because you need something to hoop to. Okay, so if you make it too small, it's very difficult to hoop. So make sure you've added 3 inches all the way around. So it'd be 6 inches to the top and the bottom, 6 inches for the length and 6 inches for the width. All right, so that just gives you a little more to hoop into. So then we're going to grab this little hoop here. And this one, I just popped it up. And we are going to be starting in this top right-hand corner. Now, the other thing I've found with my small pieces and even the larger quilts, I've started zigzagging the edges down. Because, like Kimberbell and edge-to-edge quilting, I've always struggled with the edges, like the foot going under my edges and stuff. And I found that if I zigzag the edges down, everything just goes right. And now I shouldn't go over the edge, but if I'm close to it, I don't have to worry about my foot getting caught. So I have zigzagged the edge of this down as well. So what I did to do this is I quilted the center first. You can see my mark in the center. I marked the center of my little quilt. I quilted the center first. And then I had these pinned, and then I just zigzagged my edges down just to hold it in place. Okay, so I'm just going to take these pins out now. And we're going to slide this in. So this slides into this hoop. So I may have to move that camera. I got the tripod today, so it's a little awkward. I broke my arm for my camera and I got it drying over here. So, okay. So I'm going to slide this in and we need to work in this top right-hand corner. So this is the top of my top right-hand corner. So that's where we're going to start. And we want to make sure, now this little hoop is very narrow. So I'm trying to stay kind of in the center of it. And I need to pull this down a little ways from the top so that, so it can actually sew up in the corner. Okay. So, and then I'm going to try to get it as close to straight as possible. It doesn't have to be real straight because then you can straighten it. And I'm just going to pop these down. And then I'm going to slide this into the machine. I had fun with this. I worked on this on Sunday afternoon. It was really fun. I haven't done this for a while, and I had to remember. I'll show you my goof up so you can see what you have to do if you goof up. But it's okay. Everybody goofs up, right? Okay. So here's my little quilt. Now we're going to go over here. So we did what it told us on the screen, and I'm going to click OK. It says use the move pattern keys to adjust the inside corner of the pattern. So what I'm looking at is this little section right here. I want that to be in the corner, and you can see this is the border and this is the inside of the quilt. So I'm going to click OK, and it's going to give me the screen where I can do that. So here's my, the little move keys. We've all seen these before. Okay. And this is the corner down here. Let me bring this over a little bit so you can see the screen a little bit better. Okay, so what I'm looking at over here is I can see my projection. So let me see if you can see this projector. I hope you can at least see part of it. This is the little corner right here. And let me see if I can turn the light down on the machine a little bit. Just a second. Sometimes if I turn it down, you can see it better. I always have to remember what page it's on, though. Give me a second. Someplace. Oh, here we go. Let me turn it down to like 3. Whoops. Okay, let's see here. Okay, can you see that a little bit better? Sometimes I have to turn some of the lights down sometimes. It just, you know, then you can see the projector better. The projector is very hard to see on a camera, but I can point out to where I'm looking. Let's see, light. Let's see. Let's get it down to a little bit lower yet. Let's see. I don't like to turn it completely off because I can't see then. Okay, so maybe you can see. Okay, so you can see the line a little bit better. Okay, so here is the bottom of that little corner, and there's the little corner is right here. So it's like boom, boom. There's like the little square spot is right here. What I want to do then is I need to use my move keys over here, and I'm just going to move this up. So here it comes. I'm moving it, and I want that little notch to fit in the corner of my, and it also has the little green T. That's my laser light point. So I'm going to bring this down, and I'm going to go over, and I want it to be right, this little square that looks like this. I want it to be right in the corner of my quilt. So I'm just moving it over, and my little T is there also. Okay, and I'm sorry, I wished you could see it better. It's so hard with the projector to see it. And I don't know, let me see if there's like a piece of paper. I don't think even a piece of paper would help, but it's right. Can you see the line, the bottom line here? And then up and over is the corner. This is the corner, and then it goes up this way. All right, so that's what I'm looking for, and that's perfectly in the corner now. Now this looks a little bit crooked. I can see that I'm just a little bit crooked here, but I don't know if it's going to let me swing this one, and I don't think it does, but I think it's pretty close. Let me see if I can pull this over just a little bit. You can tell if your line's fairly straight by looking at your seam right here that runs across here. So I can tell if I'm pretty straight. I think it needs to come, I think it needs to come this way. This is, there we go. Okay, so I might have to move it a little bit. I got my machine, I got everything just a little bit crooked. There we go. Okay, I think it's better now. Let me move it back over a little bit. And then back down. There we go. Okay, so that's how I kind of look at the red line that's right here. And you can probably see that. And then I look at my seam right here. And then that little chink, and this is what it looks like. I'll just draw on my quilt so you can see it. It comes up like this, and then it goes like this, okay? And then it goes, let me bring it down this way so you can see a little bit better. So there's like a little spot that goes like this, comes across, it goes up like this. This is the corner right here, and then it goes up like this. So that's what I'm looking at, and my little T pointer is right here in this corner right here. That's the corner of my quilt, okay? Can you see it? See what I mean? You can see the line, the red line right here, okay? And if I get a little closer, I'm trying to get as close as I can, but it is, the projectors are always hard. Yeah, that's a better view. Can you see it right here? Okay, so that looks pretty good. And like I said, I try to get it as close to straight in the hoop as I can, but it doesn't always, you know, it's not always perfectly straight. Okay, you can fix that in the next hoopings. Okay, so now I think we're ready. I've got Pima cotton thread in the needle and the bobbin to quilt this, and there's no stabilizer in here. This is just my quilt sandwich like a standard quilt. So I'm going to hit OK over here on the screen, and we're ready to sew. So I'm going to go ahead and sew out. Now, can you see the projector? Can you see the little flower here now? The little blue flower, it's right here. You can see part of it anyway. Okay, so that's what it's going to sew. So let's go ahead and sew it. So this is just going to do the little corner flower. Oh, I think we did pretty well. And I tried to use real bright threads so you could see it real well. okay. So all it's going to do is just that little flower. Okay. And then it's going to tell me something on the screen. Okay, so let's go over here and look at the screen. And it says embroidery is finished. Okay to connect next pattern. Of course it's okay. So we're going to hit okay. And here is my second hooping. It says use the rotate keys to adjust the angle of the pattern while keeping an eye on the points around the pattern. So I'm going to click OK. And what it's talking about now is that it has like a pendulum swing. It knows, you notice we didn't have to rehoop because there's enough room in this hoop for it to do another hooping. It knows exactly where it ended, so it's going to go back and start where it ended. But we need to tell it if this is straight or not, okay? So these little pendulum swings, can you see these little pendulum swings? They're different degrees. You can use these to help you with the angle this way, okay? And then if you are like in the next hooping, these little buttons here will make it squish it down or pull it out. And I'll show you what we're going to be looking for in the next hooping, okay? All right, so we're going to look at the screen over here. And I don't know if you can see it very well, but I'll try to mark it. This is my little green arrow is right here. Now I wonder, let me try one other thing. Let me try putting this on gray and see if that will make it just a little easier to see. Sometimes I have to adjust when I'm trying to do this on a camera. Let's see the light, got the light turned down. Let's see. Let's try putting this on gray and see if it makes it any easier to see. So let's see if it's any easier. Ooh, maybe that's, can you see it better now? You can see the lines a little better now. This is a lot less bright. So I put it on gray because the black won't work. But this is the green the little green line. And that is the bottom left corner. So it always tells you over here what you're looking at, the bottom left corner right here. And I want that bottom left corner to be perfectly aligned with the edge of my border. So it does need to swing that way just a little bit. I must be just a hair crooked. So I'm just swinging it over with one of the buttons, just a smidge, so that the edge of that little green T is right on the edge of my pink. Okay, so I've got that all on there. I'm going to click OK. I'm happy with that. Now it's going to go back and it's going to sew the next part. You can see here's the little flowers. Okay, so here, let's sew it. It's going to go back. It knew exactly where it ended, so it's starting where it ended. And it's going to sew my little flowers. And it should come right up to the edge of your border over here. It's going to leave a little space out here because, you know, that's where a binding is going to be. Looks like it's doing well. Now this is the next hooping is where I made my goof. So I'll show you my goof, okay? And there's my flower, and it's going to end pretty soon, and we're going to have to connect it. So now it's going to tell us something different to do. Because obviously we're going to have to rehoop here, aren't we? So let's go over and see what the machine says. It says embroidery is finished. Okay to connect next pattern. Okay. And now what is it going to tell us? It says first, please rehoop the material. So this usually puts panic into everybody. But you know what? I'm just going to go over here. And you can see this is where the next pattern is going to be. I'm just going to flip this open. I'm going to push this up. And if you're using magnetic hoops, you do the same thing. And I want to make sure that you can get into my corner here so that we got enough room to work in here. Push it up. Looks pretty good. And then, get it as straight as you can. You know, mine's never perfectly straight, but it's like that. Okay. And then we're going to be working with this section from here to about here where that next seam is. You can probably see my seam right there. Okay. So it says, please rehoop the fabric. We've done that. I'm going to hit OK. Then it says, use the move pattern keys to align the start point with the end point of the previous pattern. So we have to line those points like we did at the beginning. So I'm going to hit OK. And then there's my move buttons right here. So I'm going to move my pattern. And now I can see my pattern's way too high. So I'm going to move it down. And I'll move this over so you can see what I'm doing here. I'm going to move it down. And then I need to move it in to the right. So here's my to the right. Okay. So I'm looking at this. Here's my flowers down here. Can you see them? And here's my green light right here. And I'm looking for the needle to come right down at the end of the last stitches. Now, I still like to take my thread out of my needle and drop my needle to make sure that I am actually lined up. I still do that. I have all these fancy cameras and everything, but I know then that I am actually where I want to be. So I have that lined up with the last stitch of that little end. And then there's a little line out here that kind of shows you where the edges of your border are going to be. And then here's my flowers. So I'm going to go ahead and rethread my machine. So I'm pretty happy with that. And now we're going to hit OK. We did that part. And now it's going to tell me use the rotate keys to adjust the angle of the pattern. Again, that pendulum swing, while keeping an eye on the points around the pattern. Okay. Adjust the size of the pattern so that the lower left point will be the inside corner of the next pattern. So in other words, we're looking again for the inside corner of my quilt. Okay, so I'm going to hit OK. This is where I made my boo-boo. So these little guys here adjust the length. So I'm looking here at my design. And right here, I'm seeing that my seam for the corner of that quilt is way up here. And I've got about, it's about 1/4 of an inch. So I need to make it shorter. Okay. And I also need it to be swung out this way. So it's too far to the right. It was swung this way. So I'm crooked, obviously. But then I need to make it shorter because I want it to come right up to this inside corner. So I'm going to make it shorter with the little box that points up. So I'm going to make this shorter and I'm going to bring it up so that it meets that line. And you will never notice that it's a little smaller. But this is how you get your corners perfect. Let's see, I think I'm about right there, and I might need to go out just a little bit this way yet. Swing it out because I wasn't quite right. So now when I'm looking at this, here's my line that goes across. This is my seam line for this corner of the quilt, okay? And I've got my little green T right here in the on that second corner, okay? That's where I want it to come out, and it's going to drop down into here just a little bit to hook up onto my next corner, okay? So let's go ahead and click OK. And this is where I made my boo-boo. So let me show you my boo-boo on one of my borders. See how I got my corner? See how my corner goes out into off the corner? I didn't make this small enough. This needed to be shorter, and I didn't make it short enough. And so then my corner would not, it was way too big in the corner then. So obviously my quilt is slightly less than 14.5 inches square, just so you know, okay? All right, so let's see how we do here. So we're going to go ahead and sew. You can see the little flowers. And we're going to sew this one. It's going to go up here, and it's going to connect where the other one left off. And it's going to sew our little flowers. I had so much fun learning this, but the best way for me to learn it was to read the machine and to just push the buttons. Because once I got the buttons, started figuring out what the buttons meant, I just pushed the buttons. So here's our last little flower. All right, so it's going to come down and it's going to meet just slightly above that line, and that's the corner. So we're back to the corner again. Okay. And let's see what the machine tells us to do. It says the embroidery is finished. Okay to connect the next pattern. Okay. Let's click it out and say okay. And it's going to say one side has been sewn. Turn the fabric 90 degrees clockwise, counterclockwise, and then rehoop it in the embroidery frame. So we're always starting from the top right-hand corner. So we have to rehoop this, and we're going to turn it. So when I got this, it was so cool how I figured out how, after I got the hang of it, and I'm going to turn it this way, so counterclockwise, and we're going to start up in, that top right-hand corner, just like we did before. So you're basically just doing the same border, over and over. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get this in here, and I want it to be a little higher, so I have a little room. Try to keep it as straight as I can. And that's why the magnetic hoops or this old border hoop work really great for this, because you don't have to take the hoop out of the machine to hoop it. You can just slide it around in the machine. Okay, so there's my next flowers. We'll click OK. We did the rehooping. Click OK. And now we need to go back to our corner again. So it says, use the move pattern keys to align the start point with the end point of the previous pattern. So I'm looking for where the other one ended, and this one's going to start. So I'm going to click OK. And then here's my move keys again. And I need to move this. Obviously, it's way in the middle of the hoop, so we need to move it way up here. We got our little niche like we started with. Okay. So I'm going to move. Second here. I'm going to move this out of the way. Okay. Whoops. I think I overshot it a little bit. I'm going to move it over. Let's see how we're doing here. Okay. So I think I can see my T right here. Okay. Let me see if I can get just a little closer. My T's right here, and my point is right there. So I think I need to go over this way just a smidge. And I like to drop my needle, because then I can tell if I really truly am lined up. And I'm just going to rethread my needle. And here's the little flower, part of the flower. And I think we're good. Now this one will also, I'm going to click OK. Now it says use the rotate keys to adjust the angle of the pattern. So this corner, we're going to get an angle since we're moving down to the next one. So I'm going to click OK. And we're going to look here to see if our angle looks pretty straight here, which it does. This is the red line across the bottom of my little corner. And then my little T in the corner looks actually pretty good. So I think I don't need to change this one. I must have been pretty straight. So I think we're okay with this one. I'm going to click OK. And then let's stitch it out and see how we did. So there's it's meeting up where it ended off. And I was just a smidgen off, but it's not that off. That's why I wanted to use red thread. Sometimes I'll use more matchy thread so that you don't notice if you're just a smidgen off on your starts and stop points. But I wanted you to be able to see the thread better. Okay, so then it ended there. So now we're going to go on, and it's going to tell me embroidery is finished. Okay, to connect the next pattern? It is. Okay. Then we're going to, and now this one is big enough, I don't have to rehoop. So I'm going to click OK. And then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go over here, and this is going to give me my little green arrow here, and or my little green T, and it's a little off, so it needs to go over to the left. So I'm going to bump it over to the left so that it's straighter. That looks pretty good. Okay. And I think we're ready to go. I'm going to click OK, and I think we're ready to go for this hooping. And this is how it works. You just read the screen, do what it tells you, and go all the way around. But my tricks with the corners is you have to usually resize just a little bit. When you get down to the ends, you usually have to resize just a little bit, because it's usually just a little teeny bit off. So then we're going to do these. And then we'll get ready to do the resize down here again. But this was so much fun. I enjoyed this on Sunday. I just practiced, and of course I made boo-boos, you know, because I haven't done it for a while. But this works out so well, and I've done large quilts with it. I've done some larger designs. Okay, so now we're ready for that, done with that hooping. It again, okay to embroidery is finished, okay to connect, sure is. Click OK. Now it's going to tell me what it says. Please rehoop the material. So obviously there's not enough room, so we're going to rehoop it. Okay, so I'm just going to push this up. And remember, we're not actually going to sew in the corner because we're going to flip it over. So I'm just going to kind of make sure I have enough room to do this last hooping and keep it fairly straight. There we go. Push this down. And like I said, the magnetic hoop works really well for this. So you can kind of see, here's the little flowers. Again, I'm going to click OK on my screen. So now it's going to tell me to move the pattern keys to align the start and stop point again up here. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to have to move it. It's way up here. So we need to move it down because it's actually right here. Okay, so I'm going to hit the down button. Okay, and I'm way over to the left. So I'm going to have to go this way. I'm actually, yeah, right over to the left. I have to go to the right. So I'm going to move it over. See if I can get my little pointer tool lined up right here. It's lined up right there. Okay. And then I'm going to take my thread out and I'm going to check my needle drop. And I think that looks pretty good. Okay. They added a little box around the design, a little square box, and I don't know if you can see it too well. It's red. And they didn't used to have that because it is really nice to have because it gives you the parameters, the full parameters of the design. Okay, so we got that set, and I'm going to click OK. But now it's telling me use the rotate keys to adjust the angle of the pattern while keeping an eye on the points around the pattern. So this is the one that we have to find, adjust the size of the pattern so that the lower left point will be the inside corner of the next pattern. So in other words, we're looking for that corner of our quilt again. So I'm going to click OK. And I need to look and see mine's way down here, but the corner is up here. So I'm way off on this one. So we're going to use the adjustment key for the size, which is right here. This is going to make it smaller, the arrow up. I'm going to make it smaller, and I want to get that up to the corner of my quilt, inside corner. So that's as small as I can do. Let's see if I can pull this down just a little bit because I must not have put it up high enough, but I think we're okay. All right. Then I need to move it over because you can see my point is here and my corner is over here. So I'm about 1/4 of an inch off. Okay. So I'm going to go over here to my little pendulum swings, and I'm going to go over about, well, let's see, we're going to have to go over a little bit more. That looks pretty good. Now I think it could come down. Whoops. Sorry, I just hit the wrong button. There we go. Could come down just a little bit. There. Okay, so I think we're good. I've got it lined up in that corner right here. So we want to have this corner, the inside corner of the quilt. So I've got my little T right in that corner. Okay, so that, and then in other words, we made the design a little smaller so it will fit in there. All right, so I think we're ready to sew. So I'm going to hit OK. Probably should thread the machine, works better. And then we're going to do this one. It's going to go up and start right where I left off, and sometimes I can help it line up. I was a little off, but that's why I use matchy thread, because it does save it. It helps a little bit if I've gotten a little off on my start and stop points. Sometimes it's hard to see the start and stop point because there's so many lights in there, like the little pointer light is there, and then there's the red line. So sometimes I have a little trouble getting it exact. All right. So once we get done with this one, now we're going to do the same thing we did earlier. We're going to rehoop it and flip it over. Okay. So we're going to rehoop this, click OK, and it tells me to rehoop. It's thinking. One side was sewn, turn the fabric 90 degrees counterclockwise, and then rehoop the fabric. So that's what we're going to do again. All right, so we're going to open that up. We're going to flip it counterclockwise, and we're going to go back to using this right-hand corner. So I need to make sure I got enough room for another hooping here in a second. Get these pins out of here. I like to pin based. I don't use the spray stuff. Let me take a couple pins out. We're almost done. We've only got 2 more little rows to go. Okay, so make sure we got enough here. I'm going to flip it up this way. Oops. There we go. Sorry, the tripod is not the easiest for me to use. All right, so I think go up just a little higher. There we go. Bring it down. But you can see how the magnetic hoops or these little clamp hoops like this work really great for this, because you don't have to remove the hoop and all that. Okay, so we've done that part. I'm going to click OK. And now it's telling me use the move key to align the start point with the end point of the previous pattern. Okay. So if I hit OK, then it's going to give me those little line points. And again, we're back to that little corner that has the little chink in there. And that needs to be in the corner. So I'm going to move it up. Obviously, I'm way low. So we're going to move it way up. Okay. And from what I can see, the edge-to-edge quilting designs are going to work the same way as this, basically. And then I'm going to move it over to the corner. So I've got that little corner in my corner. Now here is my end point. Let's see how I did here. I'm going to pull that thread out and drop my needle. And I think I need to go back over a little bit to the left. Not quite lined up there. A little bit more. Okay, so see, I'm a little off right here then. My little corner is just a hair off. So we can fix that too. So I think that looks better. Let me lower my needle. Let's see here. That looks a little bit better. Okay. All right. So I got that lined up, but I'm a little bit off here. So I'm a little bit off to the side. So let's go ahead and look at OK. And then let's see what it tells us. It says use the rotate keys to adjust the angle. Okay. So we're going to hit OK. And now we have those angles again. And we also in the corners can adjust. So I may have to adjust the size a little bit on the corners. So this makes it, squishes it in, the first one, and this one pulls it out. Okay, so let's see what I need to do. I think the angle looks pretty good. The angle looks good, but I think I'm going to have to make it. Let's see, I'm not quite there yet. I think I need to make it a little bigger. Let's see, I'm not sure if my angle's quite right yet. So I'm looking at my red line right here to help me. And my seam. So I'm still just a little off. Let's see here. Let me see. I think I want to go back in. I think I'm going to be okay. Let me hit OK. I just was making it a little bit bigger. And I think it looks like it's going to be okay. Because what I did is I made it just a little bigger to bring it out this way a little bit. I was a little too far to the left in here. So I've made it a little bit bigger so it brought it out to the corner. Okay. There we go. So let's go ahead and sew this one. See, whoops, helps Jan if you thread the machine. You guys are supposed to be watching me. You're supposed to be watching me. I do this all the time. And if that happens and you need to be able to get back to the beginning, you know, how, you can do this in this area too. If you're doing this, you can go back to layout and you can, whoops, sorry. You can go back down here to the plus minus needle and you can go back to the beginning of the pattern. It's not going to change the placement of it at all. It'll just get you back. So if you needed a couple those little locking stitches, okay? All right, so let's do this one. So it's going to sew out this one. See how we did. The corners have been a little bit tough for me. I'm getting better at the corners, and they do line up better. This one is a little bit going to be a little close in the one corner, I think, because of my angle. But I have been doing much better on the corners. I think they're the hardest, is doing the corners. Okay, so there's our little corner. So now it says embroidery is finished. Okay to connect. It is. Click OK. Now we're gonna do the little rotation again. Okay, hit OK. And then we're going to look at it down here, and what it looks like is my little T is just a little bit to the right of the edge of my fabric. So I need to move it to the left a little bit. That's too much, so we're going to go back a little bit. Okay. And it already knows where the other end is because I didn't have to rehoop this time. So I'm going to click OK, and it only tells you to rehoop if you have to. And we're going to sew this one. So it already knew where it ended. Isn't this cool? You guys hanging in there with me? The best way to learn it is just to make yourself a little sample like this and just do it. Do something really small first so you don't have to hoop too many times, but it's really fun. And I've done some big quilts with it, and it really works just very fine. And the one thing I would tell you, it is very hard to like stop in the middle and get back to where you were. You can do it. You just have to kind of go forward through all the designs. So leave yourself plenty of time to finish your project. Okay, so if you need to do it, make sure you have time to finish it. Okay, so now we're finished with that one. I'm going to click OK. And then it's going to tell me, please rehoop the material. Whoops, not high enough. Please rehoop the material. So we're going to rehoop it. Okay, so we'll do that again. Got to get my little clips. I'm going to push this down. And remember, we don't need to get all the way down to this corner because we're going to flip it over again. So I'm just kind of pull it about right there. I think that'll be good. Put it down. Okay. Make sure it's fairly straight. I'm going to click OK on my screen. And then it's going to tell me, use the move pattern keys to align the start point with the end point. Now, the other trick that I have is sometimes if I can't quite see where my end point is, I use real bright thread this time. I'll use one of the water-soluble markers, and I'll make a point like right there with my marker so that I have a little bit more of a point to look for. Like right there, you can probably see that. And I do that, especially if it's kind of matchy thread that I'm struggling to see. So let's bring this down. I'm using the arrow key, and then we're going to move it over, just like we've been using these arrow keys for years. Move it over. There's my little T right there, right on my dot. So let's see how I did. I still like the the old needle trick. I've been doing this for years and years, and it still helps. So needle down. Going to check and see, and that looks really pretty good. All right. So I'll thread first. You're supposed to be watching me, remember? Okay. So we got that lined up. Now let's see what it tells us to do. Now it says, use the rotate keys to adjust the angle of the pattern while keeping an eye on the points around the pattern. Again, we're looking for that bottom corner. We want that bottom corner to be right in the corner of the border and the quilt. All right, so that's what we're looking for. We're going to click OK. And so it gives us our little pendulum swing buttons and also the squishing and elongating buttons. Okay, so again, I'm very low. I must be about, ooh, boy, I'm almost a ½ inch low. So we're going to bring this up, hoping that I can get this in. So I'm going to squish it. I need to squish it. It's too long. So we're just going to squish it first. Get to the corner. Oh, I'm right there. But now we need to swing this way. So it's a little bit, I've got it right where I want it here. but I need to swing it to the inside corner. It's a little bit to the right. So I'm going to swing it to the left. Ooh, getting close. Ooh, that looks good. So there's right here, and it actually needs to be a little longer now. Let's bring it down. That right there, I think looks good. So now everything is right in this corner, again, right between the body of the fabric and the border right here, okay? All right, so I think I'm gonna click OK, and I'm ready to sew. So let's see how we did up here. And you can kind of help it line up. But the little trick with the water-soluble marker, this one you can see pretty good because it's red, but I use like white. Normally I probably would have used white maybe in this, and it's hard to see the end. So I use this just to show me where the end of my stitching is, and then I can get it more lined up. All right, so there's this one. This has been really fun. I really enjoy doing this, and we're about ready to go around the last corner. So then I can show you how you line it up at the end. Okay, so there's that. Let's see what it tells us to do. That's why this is so easy. It tells you what to do. Okay. Then it says one side was sewn, turn the fabric 90 degrees counterclockwise, and then rehoop it in the embroidery frame. So of course, if you're doing a bigger quilt, you're going to have several hoopings maybe in the center, but this one we only had a couple. So I'm going to click OK, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to rehoop the fabric again, just like we did before. So I'm going to flip it around counterclockwise so we can get back up to our corner. And oops, I got a pin. Gonna take the pins out. Don't leave your pins in. Maybe. All right. And then we need to be able to get to that corner, so I'm going to pull down a little bit so I can get into my corner there. I think we're good. Whoops. Looks like I'm pretty crooked though. Let's see if we can straighten it up a little bit. All right. So sorry I'm going a little over today, but I knew that we'd be real close and we're just about done. Okay. So there's our little, we're going to hit OK on the screen, and it's going to tell me now, remember, we need to get this one lined back up. So it gave me my moving arrows. Here's my little corner, and then that little chink, that's going to be the corner of my top. So I'm going to move this up. And I'm looking at the green arrow. I want to find my end of my last design, which is right here. Oops, I overshot it. Need to go down and go over. Okay. I think we're about there. So let me check my needle. Okay, so I'm a little off yet. It's a little high. So let's go down a little bit. And it needs to go over to the left a little bit. Maybe one more bump. That looks pretty good. Okay. So we got that. That's our arrow. Thread the machine again. We're going to go back to OK. And now it's going to tell us to rotate. So we're going to have to rotate and see how we did. So click OK. And then it's going to show us. And I'm just a little bit off here in the corner. So I think I'm going to try pushing it to the left, to the right just a little bit. Okay, and I think it needs to go, I think it's actually pretty good. It looks pretty good in the corner. So I think I'm going to be okay. I'm just a smidgen off, but I think it'll be okay. All right, so I think we're going to click OK, and let's just go for it. So I think I got lined up there pretty good. So here's our corner. The corners are the hardest for me. So once I kind of got the hang of the corners there, I'm doing better with them. The trick is to make it a little smaller, like when you do the second or the last hooping right before the corner, it needs to fit in the right spot for it to fit in there. Okay, so we got around the corner. We're almost done, guys. So I'm going to click OK. And now it's going to tell me Now this is the one we don't have to rehoop, so it's going to tell me to use the rotate keys to adjust the swing. So we're going to click OK, and I'm going to look here, down here, and I'm just a little bit to the right of my corner. So I'm going to move it to the left a little bit. Oops, too much. Just a little bit more. You can do lots of different little increments. Like there's different degree increments. Like this is 10 degrees, 1 degree, but then this one is like 0.1. So that's the one I use a lot because sometimes I'm just a titch off. All right, so that looks pretty good. We're right there on the edge of our quilt. And I'm going to click OK, and I think we're ready to sew this one. So here's this one, and then the next one's the one that we have to get all lined up at the end also. So it'll walk us through that one too. But these are really fun. I'm really anxious to try the edge to edge because I think the edge to edge is going to kind of run the same way. Here's the second flower. Here's the third one. So I think we're going to have to rehoop. Okay, so we got this one. We're going to have to rehoop. Okay, and let's see what the machine tells us to do. It's so nice to have all the instructions right here, isn't it? You don't have to go find them. So please rehoop the material. That's instruction number 1. So we will do that first. Okay. Bring it. There we go. Bring it up so we can do the last hooping. We're almost done. Okay. See how whoops, kind of crooked. See if I can get it flattened out a little bit. I like to try to get them as straight as I can because it helps save time of having to move things. Okay, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to click OK over there, and then it's going to say, use the pattern keys to align the start point with the end point of the previous pattern. So we're going to click OK, and it's going to give us our little arrows again. And we need to find where we ended, which is right here. Okay, we ended right here. My design's way high, so I'm going to bring it down. Okay, whoops, overshot it. And I'm looking at my little pointer right here, and I'm going to bring it over so I can get into that point. Okay, so let's see here how we did. I'm a little high yet. Let's see how I did. A little bit more. Just a little bit more. Sometimes I can't quite eyeball it. There we go. That looks good. All right, got that. Okay. Then we got that part. So now we have to tell it okay again. And now it says use the rotate keys and size keys to align the end point with the start point. So now we're down to the end point. So I'm going to click OK. Okay. And we're going to need this end point is way up here, okay, behind where my dot is. So I need to make this smaller so that my point will end up, that looks about right there, and then we need to swing it out to the left. I think we got it. I made it a little smaller. I'm going to take my thread out of my needle one last time. I think it needs to come down one bump. I think we got it. So what I did is I lined up the end and the beginning. And we had to make it a little smaller. We had to squish it in a little bit to get it to fit. I'm going to click OK, and that's the trick. So that's what happened when I went to do this one. See, I didn't squish my corners in. So see how I'm off here? I didn't squish this in, and it came over too far. See how it came over too far right here? And that's why it didn't fit quite right. All right, so let's see how we do here. Here's the top, and it's going to end right down here where this end point is. But I tell you, do something small like this that doesn't have a whole lot of hoopings and are real small, and then just try it. Because all the little controls on there, they basically tell you what they are, and just you'll figure it out. I mean, it's pretty easy, and it just took me a little while to figure out the sizing part of it. So once I got the sizing part figured out, then I realized I have to size it in to get it to fit, and I have to make sure I'm always looking at these inside corners right here. Okay, look at there. Look, we did it. It ended here, and it started up here, and that was the last hooping. Okay, so let me untake this off, and then I'm going to switch the camera, and I'm going to hold it up so you can see it. It looks great. I have a little trimming to do. Get to my settings. So I'm sorry I ran a little bit over. I knew it would because it was a little bit longer procedure, but I wanted you to see the whole thing. Okay. You get this. So look, isn't that neat? Look at the little flowers. I thought the little flowers were cute because see, there's flowers on the inside. But wasn't that easy? But the trick is when you get to the corner, you have to stay in the corner. So we're looking at these corners real careful. And that's what I didn't do with my original sample. I messed up. See, I messed up because I didn't make, that's why my corners went over, because I didn't make this fit along this little line right here where the corner is, see? So that was the big thing that I learned doing this. And I hadn't done it for a while, so I forgot that part. And I had to go make another sample. So the sample I took the picture of was the one I did. So this is our little design. Isn't that cute? So I thought maybe I'd make some pillows or something out of these. They're cute. Or maybe a little table topper. They're not very big, but I just thought they were cute. Nice little sample for the border feature. Okay. So thank you so much for joining me today for the border feature on the Luminaire. This works on the Luminaire and the Solaris. This is the Solaris. And I hope to go back and do one with the edge to edge, because I think the edge to edge is going to be very similar to this. It looks like it's going to run basically the same way. It's going to walk you through it right on the machine. So like I said, I never read the directions. I just got the machine. I brought the machine up and started reading the machine, and it is, isn't it neat? And it is really fun. So next week, I haven't decided what I'm going to do next week yet. I think I might do something with the Solaris, but I have a machine now, so I have to look at my calendar and see how I can get that all done. So, okay. So hopefully everybody can play with their border feature on their Luminaire or their Solaris and do a little border. But yeah, this was a 10.5-inch square, 2.5-inch border. So it made a 14.5-inch square quilt. So just try something like that and do a little teeny thing, and then it goes real fast. So, okay. All right. So thanks so much for joining me this afternoon. I hope you enjoyed the border feature, and I will see you next week on Shields Live at 2:00 on Wednesday. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.